Hi folks, today we're going to talk about working with Adobe Color for either Adobe Illustrator and or InDesign. This demo is going to take place mostly in or entirely in InDesign, but the functions and the tools should be the same between both applications. So when we're talking about color, there are three panels that we want to work with within either InDesign or Illustrator, can be found under the window, color, and then we have color, gradient, and swatches. And I have them all pulled up here. One of the things that working as a graphic designer is you either work with a predetermined set of colors, or you, as a designer, create colors, and that's the most wonderful privilege of all is when you get to create colors that are appropriate for the project. But I want to show you both ways. First is working with a predetermined set of colors. So for the college, we have this handy 60-page document, which is the Edmonds College brand guidelines. And we have a logo, and we have college colors that we like to use for all of our publications to make it very recognizable, brand recognition, right? So these are our colors. We have the Triton blue and the accent green, which are the two primary colors, and then we can use the other four primary colors in combination with the other two. So we have 6 primary colors that we can use in combination, but primarily the Triton blue and the accent green are the most common colors to work with. Now each of these colors come with a set of numbers for depending on where you're going to use it. So the Pantone and the CMYK are primarily for printing processes. So if you're having teachers printed posters, bus ads, billboards, anything that's going to be printed on a substrate, we have those set of colors. Pantone is a specific color process, which is a recipe of colors that are kind of change and evolve every year. It's almost like going to the hardware store and then pick up a swatch, of color to paint your room, and say, I want this color here, and then they can go look up the recipe and then make the color exactly per order. And then there's CMYK, which is generally used for solid colors or custom colors or colors that are not within the Pantone realm. These are a little bit more flexible, and it's cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, K being for black, and then those are the letters or the initials for each color. We have a set of numbers here. It's a range from 100 to 0. So 100 being a pure color, and then 0 being white, or if you have all zeros across the board, it's all white. So there's and then there's RGB and hex, which is primarily RGB is primarily for any electronic device that displays color. So it's a light emitting. So each color of light is programmed on a scale of 0 to 255, 255 being white, and then 0 being black, because if you have no color or no light, you have black. So 0 for red, green gets 77, and 113 for blue. Hex is for particularly for websites, but then ultimately websites get displayed on electronic devices. So they kind of go hand in hand with each other nowadays. There used to be a limited number of colors that you can get on a website, but now it's more expansive and almost matches what you can get on an RGB scale. So now there's much more, you can use either one of these exchangeably. It's just where you put it. You have to enter it at a certain input point that you want to make sure that you're using the same one or the other. So in relations to InDesign, I'm switch back over here. I want to zoom back in a little bit. And so here's my color panel, and it's handy to have a pen or pencil nearby so you can write this down or cut and paste it into a notepad on your computer. Here I have the 004D71, and you can manually enter that. If you were to enter in 00000, you get black. And then if you hit 255, or well, if you hit 000, you get black. But if I enter in again 004, whoops, 4D71, that is the college blue. And if you look at the RGB numbers and then switch back over to the 077113, it comes up with the corresponding RGB number. So it's almost easier to work with the hex colors these days, so that way your RGB colors follow with it. Now, I've already done this earlier, but you can save it by adding the swatches. And then now here's my Edmunds blue, and I did the same thing for the accent green. And then now from here, you can just simply choose your box and then choose your color that you want to make that Edmunds blue, and make this box Edmunds green. And then this one here, the third box, we're going to do the gradient. So the gradient panel here basically is fairly straightforward. You have a black-white gradient that starts off with. You just simply pick up the color and then place it somewhere on that line. And then now I have the Edmunds blue, and it will range between, say, like, blue and white. This is no longer the Edmunds color once it starts gradienting out, because it becomes a different, each step of the way is a different color. And I'm going to deactivate that for a moment. And then so I can just basically drag the color right on top of here and have a transition. And you can see where it has the blue, and then you can see where it has the white. That's because you affected one. If I wanted to take the green and drop it on top of that little marker there on the white side, oops, let's be over here. There it is. Drop it on the line, not the marker, but I'll pull it out here. Now I have the transition between blue and green. You can move the transitions along. I want to just take that off if I can by dragging it off. So now I just have blue and green, no white. So the pure green is at the far end, and the pure blue is at the far right end. I can change the rate of flow between the two, the location here. If I want to make it more blue, I just decrease the less green. That's the middle point, which you can move along and make it lopsided if you want. I'm gonna leave it right here for right now. And then if I were to take this box here and then select this box, and I can just go ahead and just add this to the swatch just in case, and just bring it over here and drop it right on top. I could add it to the swatch if I wanted to. If I just right click on top and say add to the swatch, so it's always going to be there. To change the name, you just simply click on it and then swatch name, say my blue-green fade. Now this, just to tell you, this is off-brand. The college brand, if you read the brand guideline, it would actually tell you not to gradate the colors, but I just did it for demo. And so there's, working again with prescribed set of colors. If you have the privilege to work on a project that allows you to choose color, then the new way of doing this for Adobe is to go to their website, which is a web app that is linked to your Creative Cloud account. You can log in if you want, or you don't have to if you want to just use the color wheel just to create colors. Basically, it's color.adobe.com. If you were to go to that, first thing you go to is the Create section. So you have Create, Explore, and Trends. Explore is basically where other folks publish their colors for other people to look at if they want to. Trends is more of a update news site, newsletter site. Kind of brings colors that are currently being used within the industry. Pantone actually comes out every year saying these set of 20 colors will be the color for 2023. And then, those who are in the design industry sometimes will use a Pantone as a primary source of their color or not. But if you want to be trendy, you follow Pantone colors. And then the libraries, which we're going to talk about a little bit later after we create a set of colors. In the color wheel, you can create your own colors, which is where we're at now. You can actually extract colors from existing images. So if you have a illustration or a photograph, you can use the extract theme or extract a gradient. So if you know you want to use specific colors, but you don't know the numbers, you can just upload your images, and then it'll pick and choose which part of the image you want to use, and it will give you the set of colors. And then there's something we're going to talk about a little bit later, is the accessibility tool. So on the left column here, there are the top 5 colors are most commonly used within the graphic design industry. From analogous, and then the monochromatic. And if you notice on the wheel, that the color wheel here changes the arms. So from analogous, which is going to be the neighboring colors, they chose 5 here. The Adobe Color will always work with 5. You always kind of work with 5, so you have options. But in a design project, you may only work with 3 colors, but at least you get to exercise different ideas of what it looks like. Monochromatic, which is colors that are all or starting from the outer edge or go towards the middle. The middle is always the white point. And then I'll talk about how to make it colors darker in a little bit. Triad, which is splitting the wheel into 3 sections. And then each of the dots on the wheel or the circles on the wheel corresponds to the letters down here in the swatch that you see. Complementary, which we see, which is usually the opposite, colors that are opposite of each other. And then there's split complementary. And then the last 5 are a little bit more, or the last 4 are more complex color theories that can make a project very super dynamic. And then the last one is custom, where no rules apply. You just make up colors as you want to go along. So in this case, I'm going to work with complementary, since it's a very common color theme. And I'm going to work with a set of colors that I already have designated anyway, and kind of work from there. Again, you want to know the base color. The base color is always going to be C, and it's always going to have the one with the triangle on it. And then it corresponds out here on the wheel. So that's the base color right there. You see right there, there's a little triangle that goes with it. If you were to switch around, this is the green. The D is the green. That is the outer green here. E is the most inner green. And then there's the B, which is going to, again, you have to kind of look for the color a little bit. And then the A, which comes up here. So in this case, I want to work with C. I want to change the C to a different starting color. This is this particular purple here, and then you can see where all my colors are, and you can manipulate each one of these. So here's my starting point, my base color, and say I'm not a big fan of D, and I can take D here and say I want to make it a little bit brighter, a little bit more maybe greenish like, or not greenish, but a little bit brighter. And this is where the brightness down here at the bottom here, you have R, G, and B, and then the bottom one here is brightness, the bottom row. The brightness can be controlled for each individual color. I'm just going to make it a little bit brighter, but not as bright as this one to the right, but a little bit darker, so there's a little bit of dynamics in it, a little color fidelity. And then the same, I'm going to do the same over here. Maybe I like this. This is already 100%. Brightness, so maybe in this case I'll make this one a little bit darker. And if I take it all the way down, you can see that the R and the B numbers are changing because those 2 numbers make up the color, and those 2 color movements simultaneously make up the darkness or brightness. And they kind of, all this is really based on math. This is a very deep purple here, so I have these 5 colors here. And this is the color I want to work with on a project. Okay. To the right column, you can save it to My Library, which is associated with your Adobe Creative Cloud account. I want to just rename this theme here to gold or yellow and purple. And right down here, you can publish the colors. And this is where, if you publish the colors, this is where it comes out into the menu here for Explore. I'm not going to publish the colors. Part of being a graphic designer is that you're working on projects in kind of secret in some ways. So I like to kind of keep this kind of hidden from the public. So I won't publish it. And then there's a handy feature which has been added, which is called Check for Accessibility. And this is part of this part of the tool right here. It can go to the accessibility, check for accessibility. And in this case, you can see that the B and C are in conflict. Move the swatches on the color wheel to make the color more distinct and colorblind safe. So accessibility is a very important factor in being a graphic designer, because we want to make sure that all of our materials is accessible and inclusive of all people who are looking at the design, and those with color impairments. It's something that we have to take in consideration. And the other part of that, it's called, which is associated with, is the contrast, because for those who are colorblind, everything's kind of on a grayscale. So if we convert all this to a grayscale, there's not a lot of difference or contrast between these two colors. Something that you might want to look at is w3.org. It's a website that talks about working within the web community. So a standard contrast or minimum contrast level is 3:1, which is recommended for international and American standards. But for graphic designers, we kind of want to work within the maybe 4, or what is most recommended is the 4.5 to 1 ratio. This accommodates for a lot of again, low visual acuity, congenital or acquired color deficiencies, loss of contrast, sensitivity. Those are kind of the color or the visual impairments that impact a large portion of the population. So just keep in mind, I'm going to aim for a 4.5 to 1 ratio here. Coming back to my color safe, so I can manipulate a little bit. And what I might do is actually I'll go back to the color wheel to manipulate it. So maybe I'll just move this down a little bit. And I do recommend writing down the base color, because what you'll see here is that I can adjust this one color, the B color, but I can also manipulate all the other colors on the wheel or on the line because they're attached to each other. So I'm just going to put this down here. This is a greater contrast. From experience, I kind of already know that. And then I'm going to re-enter my 9628 F7 color. And that's my base color is returned back to where I want it to be. And so this is my new color. And then I can, again, check that accessibility. And now it says no conflicts are found with my colors. So these, in a grayscale, these would all have color contrast to each other. If I were to use B and D together, there's contrast. They're colorblind safe. If I were to check the contrast checker, and let's say, for instance, I need 2 colors off of this, and I'm going to go for 2 colors. Particularly, you have to kind of manually enter the color. That's going to be 9628 F7. There's that purple, and I want to check it against one of the extreme yellows that I had there. So that's ECF728. Here's that extreme color, and that's a color contrast of 4.54 to 1, or 4.5 if I were to round down. And it would work with large text, small text, or even shapes. You could pass 2 of the 3 sometimes. Let's see if it works here. Yeah, it does. So if it's a font that is smaller than at 17 point or smaller, it will become harder to read for some folks. Okay, so just kind of put that out there. But back at the color wheel, it's always good to check the accessibility and the color blindness chart. But back here, if I know that everything's safe, I can save it. And I want to save it again, named as yellow and purple, to my library on the Creative Cloud. And then I'm going to come back over here to Creative Cloud, open that up. Whoops, sorry. Open up my libraries. And there's my yellow and purple theme that I just saved. Now we got to get this into InDesign or Illustrator. So there's, for some reason, download as a JPEG is their primary option, but that's not the best option in this case because I need all 5 colors and their numbers and their individual. So downloading a JPEG with just one image is not going to be sufficient for this. If I were to click on the color and expand it on the color swatch, the top option is download as an ASE file. ASE stands for Adobe Swatch Exchange. So that means you can take this swatch, move it between Illustrator, InDesign, and any other application which allows you to upload or load swatches. Okay, and again, you can already see it starts off with the primary, the hex number. So, but I want to download it, and I want to download this to my desktop. And then, switching back to InDesign, I go to Swatches, and inside the hamburger menu for the swatch menu, there is going to be Load Swatches. And then I'm going to load the swatch, and I'm going to choose that Adobe Color yellow and purple file that we just created, and say Open. And then back at the swatch panel for Adobe InDesign, there's the name, yellow and purple. It's been imported with all 3 color swatches, or all 5. Again, you don't have to use all 5. They just work this way, so that way you have some color options. If your primary, if your 2 primary colors that you want to work with are going to be these 2 colors, you could theoretically, lose the other 3 if you don't want to. But the idea of having 5 is that, for it to make a really dynamic design or a design more dynamic, you can use all 5 in a layout. Still have color harmony, still have the color balance or color blindness checked off, and still have the contrast. And make it a little bit more, it makes it look like you use more than 5 colors. Technically you did, but they all contrast each other and follow the principle of complementary colors. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or jump in during a weekly meeting. Thanks.